As a 55-year-old man who has made more than his share of mistakes, I realized that 80% of my setbacks throughout life could have been avoided if somebody had just sat down, looked me in my eye at 30, 40 years old, and gave me the 25 tips I'm about to give you. Tip number one, the mistakes you make as an adolescent or a young adult can and will impact the rest of your life. So if you take your future seriously, start acting like it right now. The second tip I wish I had got when I was younger is resolutions won't make you rich, but execution will. Fail quickly, and as my mentor always say, execute, analyze, and adjust, rinse and repeat. The third tip that would have helped me when I was younger is to understand that my parents have psychological and emotional limitations that most likely influence the way that I look at life, the way I look at relationships, the way I look at money. And the better I can understand how that has affected me, the better I can become at working on my own self-limiting belief. Tip number 4, neurodivergence can make relationships extremely hard. In the first chapter of the book ADHD Effect on Marriage by Melissa Orloff, she literally says people with ADHD can be hard to love. Would you believe that for a marriage where at least one spouse has ADHD, the divorce rate is 14% higher than the national average? Knowing your symptoms, your tendencies, and even maybe a full diagnosis earlier on in life will save you a lot of unnecessary suffering, you heard me? You can build a community or a team around you that complements your mental strengths and weaknesses, family. You ain't got to get medicated, you just got to get dedicated. Just being conscious of that alone will give you an incredible head start in your professional and personal life, you heard? Tip number 5 I wish I got when I was young is that sugar is the devil. Bread, rice, pasta, all sugar. Basically, the consumption of anything white with the exception of cauliflower, garlic, and white women should be minimized. Even fruit juices is just sugar, and sugar will age you prematurely, compromise your liver, and the domino effect of that is it will weaken your reproductive organs. Have your boner looking like limp to simp. Tip number 6 I wish somebody told me when I was young is that whomever you choose to smash with can become the mother or father of your child. Their family history, their sexual history, their medical history, and their mindset will affect the DNA and development of your child. Tip number 8 would have really helped me in my 30s and 40s, which is to never make a purchase at face value. Buying things might be cheap, but it's the maintenance of them things that keep you in the rat race, heard me? For instance, your phone's monthly data plan, your protection plan, the time you waste on the phone with tech support, the interest you pay on your credit card, your insurance, etc. And I ain't even talking about all the time you waste just scrolling on the damn phone. So never make a purchase at face value, especially in the age of subscription-based businesses. You heard me? Tip number 9 would have been a great help in my 30s and 40s, which is to stop worrying about things you cannot control. Don't get me wrong, you can have empathy, but your empathy should never leave you empty. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Tip number 10 I wish I had learned when I was younger is that books give you leverage. Social media is mostly sales and entertainment platforms. The real, good, useful, in-depth information is usually found in books. Man, you can put yourself ahead of the pack just by getting off the soundbite bandwagon. Just start reading books on the topics, lifestyles, and values that are interesting to you. Real talk, most of what you hear on social media is just regurgitated stuff from books anyway. Tip number 11 I wish I had learned before I had started traveling as a young man is that everyone is a salesperson. Everybody is selling you something regardless of what you hear or what you see. There's a value proposition in there somewhere. When you are listening to something or someone, take a beat to ask yourself what this person is trying to get you to buy into. Sometimes it's overt, sometimes it's extremely subtle, but everyone is trying to get you to buy something. Tip number 12 that would have really helped me in my 30s and 40s is that your gross is not your take-home pay. Most people speak of their gross revenue as if it's their salary. Don't do that. Think after taxes, think after business expenses. That net, that's your take-home pay. That net is what you really make. When you look at it that way, you might discover that you actually losing money, or you might be inspired to make a lot more. Do me a favor and hit the like button if you like something, and if you're motivated as hell, hit the notification bell. If someone had told me 13 early in life, I'd be a lot further ahead than I am now. Life is too short because we wait too long to start living. First of all, what does it mean to start living? Well, what it means is that we spend too much time posturing, making impressions, and seeking acceptance. When we do that, we are living for someone else, whether it's our parents or our peers. The quicker you give up on making impressions, the quicker you can begin to start living. The quicker you can gain your 10,000 hours in self-evaluation, self-discovery, and self-mastery. Bars. Matter of fact, type bars in the comments if you get that. Life ain't about proving yourself, it's about improving yourself. Bars. Tip number 14 that would have helped me out a lot when I was young is that charity begins begins at home and ends abroad, and by charity, I mean good deeds, not just money. Water your own grass, feed your own dog, work on your own body, love your own woman, be attentive to your own kids, and mind your own business. The better you become at those things, the better you will become at helping others do the same. Out of all 25 of these tips, tip number 15 would have probably helped me the most in my younger years. Give up on your healing fantasy. Many of us grew up feeling neglected, physically or verbally abused by our parents. Some of us had parents that were substance abusers. Well, according to psychologist Lindsay Gibson, those of us with rough upbringings now live our lives in hopes of a healing fantasy. The healing fantasy is the one thing that we believe we need to get or hear from our parent or our abuser to make everything whole and okay again. Give up on that fantasy right now and just accept that the people who abused you or hurt you probably grew up in a lot of dysfunction themselves. Accept their limitations and do what you have to do to heal and protect your own sanity. They already lived their lives and they probably forgot or are in denial of what they did to you. Tip number 16 is another big one for me. You can't change nobody. Whoever you got with in the beginning is gonna be the same person they is in the end. You gotta remember, man, folks be on their best behavior in the honeymoon phase. That little white lie that you let slide will eventually become pathological lying as time goes on. Ask yourself if you can live with the best and worst versions of whatever traits that person exhibits, because that's exactly what you're gonna end up with. I mean, you can inspire someone to change by changing yourself, but you will never change anyone. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Tip number 17, don't try to be a professional investor unless you can devote your life to it. When it comes to the investment game, a lot of us late like a transgender menstrual cycle. Maybe we wasn't exposed to it at a young age, or we got an unhealthy relationship with money. Whatever the case is, it's not our expertise. So the best thing most of us can do is to consistently put money into a few tried and true funds and let it compound over time. And by time, I mean 10, 20, 30 plus years. Like I always say, life is like a vending machine. It's full of change, and you're gonna be glad you stockpile that money when you come across these unforeseen challenges. Tip number 18, I wish I had heard in my 30s and 40s, is prepare your kids for their future, not your past. I don't care if you was top dog in the yard, or the hardest gangster, or the fastest running back, or the highest testing Mensa student in all of California. Prepare your kids for their future, not your past. Bars. Tip number 19 of these 25 tips be cracking me up, but know the difference between perceived pain and personal pain. For example, it's all these angry men claiming they just pissed off with the modern woman, yet they ain't been in contact with a woman in 2-3 years. Your most obvious pain is blue balls. Sound like they suffering with Neurodivergence syndrome. Just because it's the common narrative does not mean that it is your personal experience. Tip number 20 would have definitely helped me in my 30s. Work on tone and emotional regulation daily. Because you ain't gonna get laid by saying certain things. You gonna get laid by saying things a certain way. Bars. And that applies from the boardroom to the bedroom. Type bars in the comments if you get that. I actually wish I had heard tip 21 when I was 21. For people of color, the United States is an amazing tool, but it is not necessarily a destination. Now, does that mean you gotta uproot your family and move away? No. It just means that you should seek refuge in places where you are regarded as an equal. Spend time in places where you get to see the glint in a stranger's eyes simply because he's happy to see his fellow man. When you begin to experience this type of empathetic harmony, the mind begins to heal. Find your true destination where you are loved rather than tolerated, and visit it frequently when you need to hit that reset button. Through that exercise, you will broaden your horizons in your quest for freedom, and you will also develop a better understanding of what there is to appreciate in this great country we call the USA. Tip number 22 is a hard pill to swallow when you a young man, but all advice ain't nice. Some advice might come off as harsh or lacking compassion, but it does not compromise the credibility of the information being given to you. In other words, you can still learn from a brighter even if you don't like the type bars in the comments if you get that. Tip number 23 would have helped me from my teens to my damn 50s. Qualified mentors only. Aggressively seek out the people who are doing the things and living the life that you aspire to. Even though Pookie mean well and you feel more comfortable around Pookie, he ain't never built no 10-figure online fitness empire. If that's what you into, get around the people who do that. Hey, I come from humble beginnings, so I had to pay for some of my mentors, but through them, I fell into the company of some other mentors who don't charge me a dime, but make me money all the time, you heard? All right, let's stop for a minute because these last two tips really matter. Tip number 24, I wish I had heard in my younger years. Contrary to the alpha male rhetoric, your emotions matter. But just because you feel an emotion don't mean you have to act on it. But you should always allow yourself space and time to experience and evaluate your feelings. Take time to observe how your brain and body responds to those feelings, because that's where trauma and PTSD reside, in unresolved emotion. The more feelings you can identify and validate within yourself, the easier it becomes to empathize with and validate the feelings of others. And that is called emotional intelligence, the strongest predictor of success. Type bars in the comments if you get there. And tip number 25 is don't seek success, seek purpose, and let success find you. You might not know it, but you most likely have emotional baggage. And as you head down that rabbit hole trying to heal your pain, insecurities, and fears, eventually you will emerge with a story to tell. And that story will be loaded with purpose. But whatever you choose to do, prioritize your purpose. Once you find purpose, you ain't working no more, you are being of service. Big difference. If this video's got you fired up, here go another video with 4.5 challenges that helped me get out my own weight almost instantly. And by the way, if you feeling what I'm spitting, go to therapycenter.com and sign up for my free coaching. I will help you turn your rough upbringing into your unfair advantage. Link is in the description.
Subscribe to my dad's channel. Bye!